Hi, and welcome to your Urban Connection. Remember, this is the channel that is often imitated, but is never duplicated. Now, we talk about things that others won't talk about. And let me say, ladies and gentlemen, this is our last show for the year 2023. And I first want to give thanks to all of my loyal viewers who watch this show on a regular basis. You have made this the number one urban channel in the state in the short span of 2 years. I thank you and I appreciate you. And I promise you, it's only going to get better in 2024. Now, let me say this. You know, in the month of January, the governor of the state is going to do a state of the state address to the citizens of the state. Also, the president of the United States is going to do a State of the Union address to the citizens of the United States. But tonight, I'm going to beat them both to the punch because I'm going to give you my version, my opinion of both the state and the union at the same time. And here is what I'm going to tell you that they will not tell you. The state and the union are both facing a downhill battle for all of its citizens. And they're going to give you the various reasons for what they consider the things that you should be concerned about in your state and in your country. And I'm going to give you my version of what you should be concerned about and my version of why this state and the union is in decline. You see, ladies and gentlemen, for the last 20 years at least, we have had about four things that we can greatly contribute to the downfall and the decline of this country in almost every aspect. And those four concerns and things you should be concerned about are, and not necessarily in this order, but number one, the state and the country has too much hate and too little love. The state and the union has lost all respect for humankind. And I'm going to give you a little example of what I'm talking about. You see, disrespect has replaced respect in almost every area in our country. Number one, there's no respect, and total disrespect is being shown in the Republican Party and politics in general. This disrespect on the part of the politicians, and mostly for the last 6 to 7 years, one politician in particular has led to a huge increase in the hatred that is on display on a daily basis in this state and in this country. Now, this upgrade in hate has led to a downgrade in love for our fellow man and for our neighbor and for our country. The third thing is the lack of accountability that this country is willing to accept, not only from politicians, but from our schools, our law enforcement, and last but not least, in our religion. You see, the last part I want to stress by saying this. In this country, in the last, I won't even say 20 years, the church and religious institutions have seen a large decline in membership. Several churches have closed their doors in just the last 5 years. Now, I know that some of you will say, well, that's due to the pandemic, when a lot of churches were only providing services via the internet or online. Well, that might be a part of it, but that's not the overwhelming part of it. The overwhelming part of it, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that churches, in large part, and I know some of you are not going to like this, but they're not preaching the word of God anymore. You see, religion has taken a different turn in the advent of so-called mega churches. Therefore, churches have lost a lot of respect. Now, that holds true in almost all areas in the United States today. So you take the lack of love, the decline in love, the increase in hate, the decrease in accountability, and then you take and you add in the decrease in the respect for religion. And there you have, ladies and gentlemen, the recipe for a decline, not only in just America, but in any country that shows that kind of decline in its value system over a period of years. You see, let me talk a little bit about religion. You know, when I was growing up, I remember my elders and people around me. And let me tell you, my dad was probably one of the most religious people in the country. But these people used to have an awful lot of respect for the church and for religion. And how often do I remember hearing those people say something that you never hear today in the religious community? And it consisted of these few words: give me that old time religion. You see, those people would not know how to deal with this newfangled religion that has come about in the last, I don't know, 10, 20 years. You see, I remember the time when preachers and ministers, pastors, and whatever you want to call them, would visit every hospital in the city, visiting the sick on a regular basis. And no, the sick did not have to be a member of their church for them to go pay a visit. And today, it's very rare to see a minister making regular visits to a hospital to see his own members. That's just one thing. Another thing I remember when I was growing up, there was an old cliche that you never hear anymore. And it said, turn the other cheek. When's the last time you heard that phrase? See, so all respect, for the most part, has gone out the window. Now let's go back to education and let's go back to parenting. You see, when I was growing up, the parents went to the schools with their children to talk about their students with the teachers. Today, it's not uncommon to hear parents say, let's go to the school and whip that teacher's ass. Okay? You see, that is not showing respect. That is instilling a disrespect in your child. Okay? That is why we're having a decline in our education systems. Public schooling is not what it used to be. Public school teachers are not what they used to be. Parents are not like they used to be. Let's look at the police. The public in many areas have lost respect for police. And that's not to say that all police are bad. But it's like a bushel of apples, ladies and gentlemen. A few rotten ones will spoil the whole bushel. At least that is in the minds of the people. And in certain communities, that is pervasive throughout certain communities, that the police are not to be trusted. So you see, when you lose respect, when you lose your values, when you stop going by the rule, love thy neighbor, and do unto others as you would have them do unto you, when you stop holding people accountable for their actions, such as what we've done here in the United States over the last 10, 15 years, and by that, let me tell you what I mean. We in this country are willing to call anybody that is not a United States citizen that commits an act against a United States citizen a terrorist. But at the same time, we don't care about anybody that is born in the United States and commits a violent act against another United States citizen. We don't call them a terrorist. You never hear the media refer to those people as a terrorist. You never hear the politicians refer to them as a terrorist. You look at the Republican politicians today, and they will tell you that January the 6th, there were no terrorists. They will tell you there were no crimes committed. They would have you believe that this was just a few people wanting to tour, okay, the Congress, the halls of Congress, walk the halls, even though they were disrespecting, attacking, committing violent acts against law enforcement. But they're not terrorists because they're American citizens. Had they been from any other country, they would be called terrorist, foreign terrorist. So basically, they are not being held accountable. Politicians get away with any and everything. They are accused of and even convicted of sexual assaults against women, and in some cases against men. But they're never held accountable. Take Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz has been charged for almost 3 years. Has he ever been to court? No. Was at least one of his victims underage? Yes. Where's the accountability? Our president said it out loud. When you're famous, they let you do anything. You grab him by the, well, you know what. Was he ever held accountable? No. They escalated him from an unqualified candidate to president. And in 4 years, he committed almost every criminal act you can think of except murder. And tell me, what has he been held accountable for? What charges has he ever faced? What crime did he commit? On the other hand, look at the number of politicians in the last 4 years, ladies and gentlemen, who were served subpoenas to show up for questioning. And look at how many of them chose to ignore the subpoenas. How many were held accountable? Could you and I do that? Could you and I turn our nose up or thumb our nose at a subpoena and get away with it? No. So why is it that this country thinks that it can do everything if you're rich and powerful, or if you're a politician, you can do anything, break any law, and yet expect the rest of the country to believe this saying that we've prevailed, that has prevailed for hundreds of years, that no man is above the law. I guess then Donald Trump is not a man. Okay? I guess Matt Gaetz is not a man. I guess Steve Bannon is not a man. I guess Lindsey Graham is not a man. You know, they're all politicians. They've been placed above the law. It's a disrespect that we accept, but we would never accept it from anybody that look like me and probably you. So how can we expect this country not to be in a decline when we have so much of this going on? And yet the masses willingly, knowingly accept it and put up with it and go along with it. Let's take a look right now at what's going on. The leading candidate for president in the Republican Party is the #1 con man over the last 20 years or better. And he hasn't lost a beat. Here's a man that's been convicted of sexual assault. Here's a man that's convicted of fraud. Here's a man that has in everything under the sun violated almost every law on the books and suffered no consequences. And there's a large number of people in this country that are willing to give him 4 more years as president in the United States. It's no wonder that in 2016, countries all across the country were saying, what the hell is wrong with the United States? What are they thinking? Now, let me just give you the answer. See, what they were thinking says a hell of a lot more about the country in reality than it does about Donald Trump. Because you see, we knew about Donald Trump. We knew what he was all about. And we know even better now. And yet still, so many are willing to follow a wicked, wayward, crooked man. Only in America. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have to write 2023 off as a bad experience. But we also should be willing and able to go into 2024 with a different mindset. And that mindset should be, let's take back our country. And you've heard that before. But it was from the wrong side and the wrong people. I'm addressing you people tonight to make that your pledge, make that your New Year's resolution. Let's start to not tolerate hate. Let's not put up with disrespect for our neighbor and our fellow man. Let's start holding people accountable for their actions. And that is, if you want them to change their actions. But we must first show them, not tell them, show them that we will no longer tolerate their waywardness. We will no longer go along with the view that just because you're rich and maybe famous and consider yourself powerful, that you are above the law. Because you're not. We must do what we, and only we can do. We must take back our country. Because if we don't, we won't have a country. We will not have, and we will not live in a democracy. We will live as they do in Russia and several other countries under a dictatorship. And trust me, you don't want that. You don't want to live that way. You don't want to live where you have a king who's never held accountable, who can do any and everything, and you're not even allowed to speak on it. That's not the way you want to live. That's not the way you're accustomed to living. But if you want to remain silent, and allow and accept those values in your life and in your country, I guarantee you it's going to happen. You have a choice. But if you don't open your mouth, if you don't use your voice, and if you don't make your self in the right position to do what is necessary to maintain the kind of a lifestyle that you're living today, I guarantee you will regret it greatly and mightily. Okay? You've been warned. Now, it's up to you. You know, there's an old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, ladies and gentlemen. So it's up to you. And that's all I have to say. Oh, I do have one other thing to say. Happy New Year to each and every one of you. And again, I appreciate you watching this show. And I appreciate you, the subscribers to this show, who review in your box. Every time I do one of these shows, you receive a notification in your box so that you don't miss one of these shows. Now, those of you that have not subscribed yet, I would like greatly for you to do that so that you will not miss one of these shows, because I promise you, they're going to get better, okay? And probably more frequent, all right? Again, thanks for watching. And again, the best of everything for you in 2024. But you must do what is necessary to make that a reality. That's my show. Take care.